Hello, my name's Howard Herzog. I'm a senior research engineer at the MIT Energy Initiative. I recently was approached by the MIT Press to write a book on carbon capture. This is for their Essential Knowledge series, and here's a copy of the book translated into Turkish. And this Essential Knowledge series is aimed at talking about fairly technical topics to a general audience. So it's really fun writing the book and trying to explain what I do and this important topic to non-experts. The book is entitled Carbon Capture, and it discusses a field that's commonly referred to carbon dioxide capture and storage, or CCS for short. The book's divided into 8 chapters. The first chapter of the book deals with climate change itself. It talks a little about the causes of climate change, and more importantly, how we can intervene to mitigate the emissions and to reduce the damages that climate change can cause. The second chapter is on fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are the biggest source of CO2 emissions and therefore important to understand. We talk a little about their history, their use, and also how we can reduce the emissions coming from these fossil fuels. Chapter 3 talks about the technology itself for carbon capture, how we can take the CO2 out of the smokestacks of our power plants and industrial facilities. Chapter 4 goes on and talks about what to do with all this CO2 once we capture it. So we can maybe use it, but using it only has very small markets. Most of the CO2 we capture is going to have to be put underground into geologic formations. This sort of forms a nice loop where we take the fossil fuels out of the ground, we use them for their energy, capture the CO2, and then put the CO2 back underground from whence it came. Chapter 5 then talks about some of the large CO2 projects that have been implemented. These are projects on the 1 million ton per year level. There's been a couple dozen around the world. I pick some of the more interesting ones to discuss. We're currently putting about 40 million tons of CO2 underground. Chapter 6 then talks about what people term negative emissions. And what this is, instead of trying to take the CO2 out of smokestacks, actually try to take it out of the atmosphere itself to reduce the concentration level of CO2 in the atmosphere. A couple ways this can be done. One way is with bioenergy and carbon capture and storage. Let the trees take it out of the atmosphere, and then we'll remove the CO2 from the trees in a power plant, just like we do if we burn coal, when you burn biomass and take the CO2 out. Even more challenging is making machines to actually take it out of the air, just like we take it out of the smokestack. With CO2 being so dilute in the air, this is very difficult, but we discuss the challenges and some of the activities going on in this field. Chapter 7 talks about politics and policies. It's always going to be cheaper to put CO2 into the atmosphere rather than capture and store it. So therefore, we need policies to come into place to not let us freely emit CO2, because there are damages associated with it. And we talk a little about what those policies are and how they can help move CCS forward and create markets for it. Finally, we talk a little about the future. I don't do any predictions here, but I do talk about trends that will be important, trends in climate policy, trends in CCS technology. So here's the book again. If you're interested, I hope you consider buying a copy. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you very much. Bye.